Hello. Welcome back to another episode of The Works. I'm Jim.
I'm Diane.
And before we get into it, quickly, because I do a lot of things quickly, shout out to, we added a new state. Shout out to Indiana.
That's exciting.
Our fourth state of someone listening from, or however these statistics are accumulated, but thank you, Indiana. Little thing about Indiana, did you know that they were, and I had it right here. Yeah, land of the Indians, Indiana, which kind of makes sense, right? But called the land of.
Why didn't they have to change the name of their state?
Yeah, to the land of the Guardians, because the Cleveland Guardians had to do that, and home of the Hoosiers, which I had no idea that an Ohioan, we call ourselves Buckeyes, or North Carolina or Carolina. It's we're North Carolinians.
Right. Well, we're Ohio was Ohioans, but
or Buckeyes. Some people, that's
right.
another slang for what to call somebody from Ohio. But in Indiana,
because of the Ohio State University. And
no, I thought it was the candy, the chocolate covered.
Well,
Never
of
mind.
course,
Yeah. Okay.
You would think that.
So, yeah, Indiana, I had no idea that that's what a resident from Indiana was called a Hoosier. I didn't know that was that connection.
Right.
Not an
Indianian. I thought that was just because of the university that was their nickname, the Hoosiers.
Right. But did you know where the term Hoosiers comes from?
No.
Or what it is?
No.
A Hoosier was again has its origin, or theory has it. The origins come from Virginia, Kentucky, or the Carolinas, and it's a term for a backwoodsman, a rough countryman, or a country bumpkin.
Oh, okay.
So a nice way of calling a country bumpkin
instead of
person.
A hillbilly or a redneck. Okay.
They're a Hoosier.
Okay.
So I want to jump into it because this one could be fun. We're going to talk about our favorite things.
Yeah, how about
just like that Barbra Streisand song.
You want me to sing?
God, no. And then all those that have done a version of that.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, nobody else can do it the way
Babs does.
But top, our favorite things. And let's start out with something that's been bugging me lately is top Olympic events that no longer happen. And
I know your favorite.
Motorboating. But I was like a kid up until we did a little research for the show, and I was informed that motorboating is nothing more than sitting in a boat with a motor. Like it's sailing, but it's in a motorboat. So just like discovering Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny aren't real, that would have been my favorite event that doesn't exist anymore. However, so since motorboating isn't in there, you've discovered that, well, breakdancing.
Yeah, it's not going to be in the 2028 Summer Olympics. It's out.
But it was only in for?
The last one. 2024.
It should have been, the people that would have been able to qualify for, again, do you qualify for breakdancing and just show up with some cardboard? What qualifies you for breakdancing?
Right. And they have competitions? Well, I guess now you have other dance competitions. It used to be growing up, you had a dance recital.
Well, then again, it's a scoring thing.
Yeah. Now there are dance competitions. But anywho, that's
so again, a favorite event or a favorite thing of ours would have been breakdancing, but come to find out that can't be either because that's out.
Because that Australian dancer, that was comical.
Which one? What?
She was the one that had those awkward moves that everybody made fun of.
Oh.
Yeah. No, one of my favorite ones that they no longer do was, you could hold your breath underwater or how far you could swim underwater.
And that was an Olympic event.
It was an Olympic event. And they said it didn't catch on because back then they didn't have underwater cameras. So spectators they didn't know what was going on. So there wasn't an appeal for it. They didn't cancel it because it was dangerous. No, it was because the audience, and the guy that got second, he actually swam longer, 30 seconds longer than the other one, but he must have had his eyes closed because he swam in a circle, so he didn't swim as far. So he did not win gold.
Wow. And what year did all this excitement take place?
Oh, I don't have.
How do you
that in front
cover
of me.
that? How do you do play-by-play for?
Yep. Oh, there are more bubbles. 4 bubbles means he's almost done. I mean, we did that as kids, unbeknownst to our parents. How long you can stay underwater? Oh, yeah.
So that turned into an Olympic event.
Yeah.
So, and another Olympic event favorite thing that we have been talking about is the luge or the skeleton.
Right. How do you know you're good?
Right? I don't know. Watch this setup. How do you know that you're good or not good? Because, I mean, we were talking seriously that, like any sport or any event, the reality is you need practice to be of Olympic, caliber. And so that's the idea, right? Where do you practice luge or skeleton?
Right. And it's not like, you have little gymnasts with gymnastics and ice skating where you do your first time you're on skates at 4 years old. You don't send these little children down an ice luge.
Right.
But I did a little bit of a deep dive and found out that there is a program for 10 to 13-year-olds, and it's sponsored by White Castle.
Oh, here's a nice connection to Ohio.
Shout out Columbus,
but
Ohio.
They're not called White Castle, or was it?
Yeah.
What was the name? Oh, it's called White Castle.
The White Castle slide.
Okay.
And so you show up to these, they go across the country and they meet with 10 to 13-year-olds.
How long have they been? Sorry, how long have they
Since
been?
1985.
Wow.
They've been doing this to expose people to luge, these kids. So
no idea.
They show up, and part of it is to make sure you don't have baggy clothing on, but and they show you the parts. This is the luge. These are the components, and you get put on a luge type thing with wheels, and they have you go down a little go-kart. It's not a go-kart, I'm oversimplifying. And then they test you for your physical strength. I don't know if it's, let's do some jumping jacks and push-ups. And then they decide, okay, we're going to pick you, and you. And you're part of the junior team. And once you're picked, then you go to one of these 3 locations that they have the ice luge, and that's when you get your first exposure to ice. So it isn't that you have any innate natural ability. It's just a cattle call, like the spoof on SNL. You have the right body shape. I don't know. But
shout out to hometown Columbus, Ohio, White Castle.
Mm-hmm.
Which, by the way, we don't have any of those down south. So
the closest is Crystals.
It's not the same.
No.
So, hint, wink, wink. But another. So I guess that's neat that they still do that. You made me think of when Columbus got its soccer team. You remember at one point, at least the way I remember it, we wanted to call them public desire, or more of the public was interested in picking the word sliders for the soccer team than the crew, which makes sense because Columbus, White Castle,
the home of
sliders.
The sliders. Yeah.
But it wasn't that, and if I remember that right, we ended up with the crew.
Right.
And how generic can that be?
Well, alliteration, Columbus crew. So.
Well, but it's the crew. But
right.
Okay, that's fine. And not to get off topic, but I never understood the Blue Jacket name.
Yeah,
at all.
I didn't either. But
yeah, so favorite things. So or not favorite things anymore. So what are some of those other? Are we done with the Olympics?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think
How
so.
about outside? Remember, outside play yard
Schoolyard type games.
games.
Hmm. What was your favorite?
Well, two of them leap to mind. Well, you argued with me that one isn't really a schoolyard game. I certainly would agree with you, but Smear the You Know What
Yeah. You
was a
can't.
favorite game. Again, honestly, though, it wasn't a favorite because if you weren't in the good crowd, right? What were
Right.
the cliques in your head, speds, jocks? What were they? What was the moniker for the cliques in school in Westerville? I know what they were in Pickerington.
Well, yeah, I was kind of
Head
obtuse.
sped.
I didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't fit in anywhere. So there's
Yeah.
that.
Oh yeah, and
But
Matt reminded me of the whole. We were making fun of him for sliding his Plymouth Champ into various things as he would use the emergency brake as the main brake for the car.
oh God.
And he reminded us that he'd done that in the parking lot at high school and ran into a car.
Oopsies.
Now, see, I just read that like yesterday, and I can't remember exactly. You have to pull. We need to have monitors up so I can.
Yeah.
I'll get that right next
So
time. Matt,
yeah.
sorry, but so yes, smear the queer.
Yeah.
Oh, I just said it. Forgive me.
Oopsies.
Sorry.
Um. Yeah.
and then-
we and there was always hide and seek.
Yeah.
Which being the nervous, crazy child that I was, I never was good at hide and seek because I'd be hiding and I'd get so nervous that I have to bust out of my hiding spot to go inside to go use the restroom. Never got to finish a game because I was just so nervous. Oh, and don't get me started on Duck Duck Goose. That had me so overly anxious because, you might be it for quite a while if you're not fast enough. Oh, that was
Duck
I
Duck Goose
couldn't-
got you. What about TV tag?
yeah, I like TV tag. That was fun.
There was one that involved a clock, and I can't remember. I thought it involved a clock, but so
Oh, no, when you're going to pick teams or
Oh.
you didn't want somebody to play your thing.
the
we
kid
had
dividing
Yeah, well,
sayings. If you
well,
will.
if we didn't want people to play with us, we would say, "Tick tock, the game is locked. Nobody else can play. And if they do, we'll take a shoe and beat them till they're black and blue. Hooray!" What the heck was that? Yeah, you had to have the hooray at the end.
Yeah.
But then the other way to choose is ink a bink, a bottle of ink, cork fell out and you stink. You go back and forth to. Everybody puts a hand in.
Yeah.
Bunk, 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 bunk.
What was the one that you choose at the end? So eeny meeny miny mo. What was
Catch a tiger by his toe.
if
If he
ho-
hollers, let him go. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. And then you could
Oh
always
no!
add,
And then your mother
my-
and my mother were
my-
hanging out clothes. Your mother
sock my mother
in
in
the
nose.
Well, hold on. What was the rest of that?
I don't know.
See, this is so your mother and my mother were hanging out clothes.
My mother
My-
socked
your mother in the nose. What color
Or
was
was
the blood?
blood.
And then and whoever it landed on,
And then you
would
spell
quickly
it out.
you
Yeah.
would quickly come up with a color that didn't hit you,
Yeah.
or if you wanted to be picked, blue, yellow.
I forgot about that
Oh,
one.
you should have said chartreuse.
Yeah. That would have been me, the difficult child.
I'd have a hard time, spelling that one. The other things that were favorite from our youth, that little paper thing,
Oh, yeah, the fortune,
fortune teller?
tellers.
or some call it the cootie catcher.
Yeah, that folded thing. I never knew how to make them.
Well, you were a girl. I just assumed that you would, because it's where they came from. All
Right.
girls knew how to do that.
Right. That's what they say on South Park. But yeah, there was an episode of that. But yeah, I was never very good at you know how my hand-eye coordination isn't all that great. But yeah, you pick a color on the outside and you spell BLUE, and then you open up on the inside and
Well,
there are numbers.
Yeah, it was clever because depending on you had the fold in or the fold out,
Mm-hmm.
and it basically revealed two sides of this origami thing that you folded up.
Yeah.
But part of it was I never remember. At least what I can
what
recall.
you were deciding on. Yeah.
Well, right. And,
what was
and
the question?
What was you were just excited to play.
Yeah.
Blue 6, and then I don't know whatever was revealed by the flap was
Right.
your
And then
destiny.
you have to be so upset if it was something that you did or didn't want. It was, ugh, again, my poor little nerves.
Okay, so kind of back to the youth. So
Hmm.
favorite cartoons.
And Bugs Bunny. You can't go wrong with Bugs Bunny.
But Bugs and there was a myriad of other
Hmm.
characters, right? I mean, so Bugs. I mean, to me, Bugs was fine,
Oh, he
but
was
the
funny.
whole Roadrunner thing was way more funny.
See, I was
Than,
not a Bugs Bunny. It was
not
too
to mention, there were no words.
right. No, I love the humor of Bugs. Such an interesting monster.
Yeah, what other characters? Yosemite Sam,
Mm,
Foghorn Leghorn.
yeah.
I say.
Mm-hmm. That poor dog.
But
Elmer
then,
Fudd.
but then non-Warner Brothers cartoons like Tom and Jerry.
Yeah, that was not my favorite.
I think the
What was?
Jetsons. I enjoyed the
Yeah, that
Jetsons.
that was
It was
fun.
just the whole future thing with
And
the
Scooby Doo bugged me. I did not like Scooby Doo.
really.
Did not like it.
There was another version of that mystery. There was something called Clue Club, which I was a bit. Oh, there's alliteration. Um, I enjoyed that one. They solved real mysteries.
Oh, that would have been fun.
It wasn't that typical
Well,
story scenario in Scooby Doo where oh, if it wasn't for those dreaded kids, I would have
yeah.
gotten away with it. Line it in, but it's easy enough to do or easy enough to write an episode with. Kind of that formulaic concept. So what other? I mean,
Well, as I got older, as an adult, I loved Pinky and the Brain. That was funny to
and
me.
all the Animaniacs.
Yeah.
Those were clever. So as you get older, what are your favorite top shows, television shows, and or favorite endings to TV shows?
Nobody can write an ending anymore.
I think the classic was the whole Newhart thing.
Bob Newhart? I don't remember the end of that one.
So remember, Bob Newhart was famous for the psychiatrist show. What was that called? The Bob Newhart show?
Yeah.
And the whole In show was that not just called Newhart?
I never watched the show.
Anyway, so there was the 70s version that Bob Newhart starred in, and
Mm-hmm.
the 80s version, which was equally as Bob. As a matter of fact, had three characters. It was
the-
Larry,
Daryl,
Daryl, and his other brother,
Daryl.
Daryl.
Okay, I remember that part.
But the ending of that was he wakes up in bed.
And it was back to the
It was
original.
Suzanne Plachette, who I think starred in the first one as his wife, right?
Oh, that's clever.
That was very clever.
Yeah.
But then the line at the end was, I guess, his wife in the New England Inn scene scenario. That's what the whole Newhart, the 80s version was about. Him, he's an innkeeper in a New England town.
That was good.
But
yeah.
I guess, and I don't really remember her being all that much of a beauty, but I guess she wore a sweater well, and that was the one thing that. So when Bob woke up in the morning and he says, "Oh my God, it's all been a dream," because that's when she gets and she sets up in bed, turns over, the in studio crowd goes crazy, and his one line was something to the effect of, "I think you need to wear more sweaters." Which I thought was clever. But again, I was never a Newhart fan, but that
stuck with
that
you.
was that. And as a matter of fact, the opposite of that, I think Seinfeld's ending was absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
Sitting in a jail.
Yeah.
I mean, his shows, and we've just our kids have started to discover Seinfeld, and again, a whole generation out there, through these streaming services can enjoy. But some Seinfeld was great. As a matter of fact, we tried to get into the Larry David show. Of course, Larry David was
one of the
writer
writers
and producer.
Seinfeld.
And you can see the humor there.
Right.
But the Larry David show,
it just annoys me. I don't
it
get
just
it.
wasn't, it was anxious, I guess.
Yeah.
Other than the one episode recently about the lawn jockey that was kind of, that made us watch.
Yeah.
He had to go find one. And where did he go? Went to a southern state to go find one.
Yeah.
But the whole other story.
The ending of Seinfeld was not good.
Was not good.
No, we liked the ending of some of the more recent ones.
Like,
Well, we're rewatching Ozark. Did we like the ending of Ozark?
I think it left us, and that was an only 4-season one. I have to, and see, I even forget Breaking Bad now to a certain degree. I mean, I know,
Yeah.
where we're at in season 4 again that we've watched it, but, and that's why it was great with one of our favorite series, 24. We had talked about that once before with Kiefer Sutherland, who, what was great about that show, it was, in the 24 in the 24 episodes that existed in the season, and boy, there was a lot of ass kicking going on during the first 23 hours, but that 24th hour, man, that story wrapped up nice and neat.
those were always good.
Very good story.
Yeah, now I'm gonna have to go back and watch those again.
Veep, one of our favorite,
that
more
ending.
modern show. Horrible ending. Well, the whole last season was horrible, but again, great show. So, favorite books or favorite movies?
What about movie quotes?
Well, that's a whole. To me, that would be a whole other topic. What favorite movies that are quotable?
Okay.
And Where the White Women is certainly on my top 5.
Yeah, Blazing Saddles.
Where the White Women, and of course all the Caddyshack stuff.
Yeah, The Jerk has a few good lines. I Found My Special Purpose, where he hates these cans.
That's a classic.
The Jerk. Well, there's so many good classic movies out there. How do you pick, or do you want to pick your top current movie?
Yeah, and I guess
there aren't any.
It's
very
like
good
asking
current
you.
Movies.
Well, it's like asking you now. What was your favorite decade that you've been alive, and do you think that would have changed, or if you ask, we ask ourselves that now, it's like, are we looking more forward to the next decade or the next 5 years, or the best years of our lives are gone?
I don't know.
High school was so, the growing up part I thought was tough. And of course, you had everyone tell you these are the best years of your life.
Yeah.
And
that did not.
Oh, in some respects, they were pretty good. Had it pretty good.
Yeah. In my household,
well,
I was told that, in high school, and I've suffered from depression on and off of my life. Exercise definitely helps, but, with battling in high school and being told that this is the best years of your life, and then you throw Robert Schuller's self-love in the doorway instead of getting me help. Boy, that was something. I'll put a pin in that one.
Oh, okay. So that's a good topic. Is in my case, they'd be great mother-in-law stories that aren't cliche, but things that you shared, again, the growing up thing. Let's not ruin it, because that I think that would be a great all by itself.
Yeah.
But certainly I could.
I'll entertain you.
Well, okay. Here's the teaser. I can't help myself. I was shocked. I don't remember the exact scenario, but you would describe going to the liquor store and sitting in the cart.
Yeah,
now,
shopping cart.
How often do you go to the liquor store and have to use a cart?
Yeah.
To me, that means you're planning for a whole week's worth of something.
Yeah.
In a day. But
memories.
Yeah, good times.
Good times.
The only one I didn't. I had a couple other ones written down. Top foods. I don't think that doesn't change. I mean, I know the whole idea of acquired taste. Like, never liked coffee growing up, but I like it now.
Yeah.
There's no way I can't drink black coffee. I don't want to. What's the point? I'd rather have water.
True. As a kid,
you drink black coffee.
Yeah, I do in the morning, because that
and
whole intermittent.
Women too. That's a woman thing, I think.
Yeah.
Well,
so the things I ate as a kid. Oh my God, Velveeta and ketchup sandwich. Ooh.
Well, but you liked it.
I guess
now, did you like it?
I guess.
Well, again, that's a good
I even
one.
had
Things that your
Velveeta
parents
mayonnaise.
made. Things that your parents made that there's no way. But some of it too is heritage.
Yeah.
Right. Being our generation. So I guess go back to our generation chat. It's the X's, the Ys, the Zoomers, if you will, that are at least 2 generations removed from some family member coming through Ellis Island, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's not a lot of that, I say, ethnic food that they're brought up on.
Right. And it depends on where you are in the country too. Like out here in the country, there aren't a lot of ethnic foods here. But if you go into the
moonshine,
big city, oh yeah, you got
that's region.
Yeah.
But yeah, the idea of, and this was always my argument, because you would know, I guess, the lineage of the family that, or the person that you were dealing with, when I would pop off with my, okay, so pigs in the blanket are what?
Pigs in a blanket are
not
crescent rolls.
hot dogs with crescent rolls.
Yes,
No, they're not.
is.
No,
Yeah,
see, again,
yes,
maybe again, this is the whole heritage thing, and it's not like my family grew up and we were exposed to, hell, you were exposed to more diverse ethnic food,
mm-hmm.
I think, because again, you had, Irish parents, Irish one side, Ukrainian the other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and,
I got more exposed to the Eastern European type food, but you grew up with that type of food too,
right? Well, Western PA, and when we finally moved to Ohio, it was, to me, pigs in the blanket were always that cabbage
rolls, stuffed cabbage,
ground beef, rice,
cholupski.
Well, and then we were talking about this, and then there's just the cabbage version of that, cholupski.
Cholupski was the pastry.
Oh,
and cholupki was the I'm sure I'm saying it wrong because I was never taught Ukrainian, so there's that.
Yeah, so that's about the only thing I remember, again, other than being traumatized by mayonnaise or butter on my sandwiches.
Yeah.
And
but are there still some things that you ate as a kid that are still your favorite now? Now pizza, I could eat pizza every day.
And I've tried, but that doesn't really work.
No, it doesn't.
She says it, but I can't get away with that. No, I mean, pizza's outstanding.
I would never say no to pizza.
And recently, well, I know that's been something on the social media, is to recreate the rectangle pizza you got in school. For some reason, that was good. Remember? No, you didn't. You didn't get the buy lunch. Yeah.
It was half a sandwich, an apple, and an oatmeal cream pie.
I think we should create some sort of fund that anyone ever like you has to grow up like that, and we can save them from themselves.
Yeah.
So they're not scarred emotionally for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
Which I think a lot of that still carries over.
It does. It does. Work in progress.
You don't have many years to fix it.
Oh.
Well, I'm sure you've got more than I do, but neither here nor there. Well, it's been a fun visit. And until next time, I'm Jim.
I'm Diane.
And you're listening to The Works.